In response to Korge's previous financial and political support for Wasserman, Schultz, and Clinton, DNC Executive Committee member James Zogby, who supports Bernie Sanders, expressed serious concern regarding Korge's appointment as finance chair, telling Status Coup that apparently nothing has changed since 2016. Let that sink in. This is James Zogby. He's a DNC executive board member. He's a Bernie Sanders supporter. He chooses his words. Carefully. Said, apparently nothing has changed since 2016's Democratic primary. That, if you recall, former DNC chair Donna Brazile doesn't like me, publicly wrote that it wasn't a fair fight, and then took it back really quickly. She was trying to sell books. Zogby went on to say, Chairman Perez's appointment of Korge continues a disturbing trend of the lack of accountability, transparency, and democracy coming from the DNC. Woo! James, tell him. Let him have it, James Zogby. And this was over the phone. We spoke yesterday. Tried to get Bernie Sanders' campaign to respond, but no response. No response. He went on to say, appointments get on Korge's appointment. Appointments get made, and we have no idea until they're done deals. It would have taken nothing, especially given what happened in the last election. It would have taken nothing for Perez to have given us advance notice and even talked to the Bernie people on the DNC. But to come out with this and then after a couple of articles say, oh, no, he's pledged neutrality is nonsense. It's a backhanded way of dealing with a problem that needs to be addressed straight out front. And that is the party going to put its thumb on the scale? Is the party going to be accountable, or are we going to have to wait for the next Donna Brazile book to get written before we know what's going on? And the answer is, apparently, nothing has changed. And that's troubling. He's basically saying, are they rigging it right out in the open? But obviously they aren't doing it in the open. In this case, if they're trying to show neutrality, they must know that hiring this man does not show neutrality, right? So he's basically saying, are we going to find out which way they rigged it, after the 2020 primary and the next Donna Brazile book? Zogby concluded that Korge's appointment creates a situation where you have to be a naysayer, ultimately making this an unacceptable way to run a political party. Korge has also bundled at least $500,000 for President Obama, according to the Miami New Times. In 2012, he hosted a fundraiser for Obama at his 7-bedroom, 8-bathroom home in Pinecrest, Florida. Wasserman Schultz was in attendance for that. He's also raised $7 million for former Vice President Al Gore and former Secretary of State John Kerry. Korge's financial support for Wall Street and business-friendly candidates continued as recently as months ago. In January, he donated the maximum allowed of $2,700 to California Senator Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, whom Bloomberg reported recently held a fundraiser at Citigroup Managing Director Jan Kotenlem's Fifth Avenue apartment in New York City. How's that for being for the people? For the people in Citigroup's penthouse on Fifth Avenue. Kamala Harris for the people. You can't make this stuff up. The arrogance of this candidate, Kamala Harris, the arrogance of the DNC to sit here and say, we're for the people. Trump, we're for the people. We're going to give relief to the middle class. Have we heard this before? What do you think? She's having fundraisers at the top of Citigroup's the managing director of Citigroup at the top of his Fifth Avenue apartment, and they're discussing, free college, Medicare for all, universal basic income for the masses, strengthening labor unions, more productive and stronger regulations on Citigroup, banks stop ending their investments in fracking and big pipelines that are destroying the planet and are contaminating our water. I'm sure all of these things were discussed between caviar and champagne. So Korge gave $2,700 to Kamala Harris in January, But that came with a little caveat. He told Kamala Harris, if former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, who has been infamously tied to Bill and Hillary Clinton financially and politically for 3 decades, jumped into the fray, Korge's money would go to him. Quote, I did give a contribution to Kamala Harris, but when I gave it to her, I told her, if McAuliffe jumps in, I'm supporting him, he told CNN in March. I have made it clear to her, as well as every other person who has approached me, including 5 or 6 of them running, that if McAuliffe runs, I am supporting him. McAuliffe ultimately decided not to run, but apparently the admiration seems mutual. Because McAuliffe told The Hill, Democrats on all levels across the country will benefit from his leadership, talking about Korge's appointment to the DNC finance chair position. I don't know Korge. I mean, I've spoken with some people from South Florida who do. They don't really have wonderful things to say about him, but I didn't put it in the story because I don't, it's neither here or there what kind of person he is. But what I will tell you, you're starting to see a trend. This new DNC finance chair, who has openly called Bernie Sanders a danger to the future of the Democratic Party, supports Wall Street friendly, actually Wall Street loving candidates like Hillary Clinton, like Terry McAuliffe, like Kamala Harris. He has donated before to Democratic senators like Chuck Schumer. He has given money to Joe Biden when Joe Biden was a senator. He supports candidates that are business friendly, that help real estate executives land big contracts and development deals. I believe Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, there was a bit of questioning that went on about her directing contracts to one of his companies. So what you have here is somebody who clearly, in a leadership position, his inherent interest and bias is for candidates like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, pro-business, faux progressive candidates. And he is going to be the finance chair. It's up for approval at the August DNC member. So as finance chair, you play a huge role in bringing money into the DNC. You play a role in what joint fundraising agreements the DNC would make. Remember, I spoke about it earlier in this story, the fundraising agreement that was made between the Hillary Clinton campaign, the DNC, and the Democratic state parties, which they said, we offered it to Bernie Sanders too. Well, Bernie Sanders isn't doing corrupt fundraising deals, which Politico called a money laundering scheme. Well, this gentleman is the one who would be in charge of those fundraising agreements. He's also the deputy to Tom Perez. So one would think he'll be in the room helping making decisions with the DNC in terms of this primary. When they're rigging it, folks, oftentimes when it's being done in real time, you don't see it. So it's up to you to think, does this guy appointing a Debbie Wasserman Schultz megadonor, a Hillary Clinton megadonor, somebody who calls Hillary Clinton his big sister, somebody who has given money to Kamala Harris, somebody who gave over $4,000 to Joe Biden when he was a senator, somebody that would not respond to me, nor would the DNC respond to me, if he gave Joe Biden money after he launched his campaign. Again, there was a week to 2 weeks between Joe Biden announcing his campaign and this man becoming DNC finance chair. There's no way for me to know if he gave money to Joe Biden's campaign because it's not with his donors aren't with the FEC yet, Federal Election Commission yet. So we don't know. But if he didn't, one would think he'd answer, or the DNC would say, he says no. If he's not answering, I'm going to assume he did give money to Joe Biden, which I'd be happy to correct if they do answer me, which would mean he gave money to Kamala Harris 5 months ago in January, and he's given money to Joe Biden basically a month ago. And now he's the DNC finance chair. Oh yeah, he said Bernie Sanders is a danger to the future of the Democratic Party. Neutral party. Oh, while donating to Harris's 2020 campaign, Korge has also given the Democratic presidential candidate and former Vice President Joe Biden during his time in the Senate, donating $4,000 in the decade of the 2000s. Again, it's unknown whether Korge has donated since Biden announced his 2020 campaign, since Biden's donor information hasn't been submitted yet to the Federal Election Commission. Neither the DNC or Korge responded to Status Coup's request for comment regarding whether he has donated or raised money for Biden since announcing his candidacy. Despite his history and a clear disdain for Sanders, Korge vowed to abide by the DNC's neutrality policy. Quote, "I have worked tirelessly to help the Democratic Party and have been proud to support a wide array of Democratic candidates," Korge said in a statement, according to the Huffington Post. "I'm fully committed to the DNC's neutrality policy, and I look forward to raising the funds necessary to help whoever our nominee is." The DNC gave me the same exact statements. Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign did not respond to Status Coup request for comment on this story. You know, it's not a shocker. I mean, giving you behind the scenes, it's been hard for me to get responses from Bernie Sanders' campaign for stories I'm working on. That might not be anything about me or Status Coup. Campaigns are busy, and there's a lot of reporters reaching out that they get back to some and don't get back to others. It just depends what their strategy is. And strategy, there's long-term strategy, and then there's your strategy as you go in a campaign. So your long-term strategies could be different than your strategies this week. So this week, they might not want to focus on a potential DNC scandal because they're focusing on Bernie might be showing up to the shareholders meeting at Walmart, which is a great thing, and other policies he's been rolling out. So they might not want to get in the mud with the DNC. Personally, I think it's a huge mistake because I don't think at this point Bernie Sanders' campaign is naive. Jeff Weaver told the Huffington Post, this is very concerning. I didn't speak to him for this story. I don't think James Zogby, who is a DNC member, a Bernie Sanders surrogate, would be saying absolutely nothing has changed since 2016, and it's complete nonsense when the DNC says this guy's going to be neutral and they're neutral. I don't think he'd be saying that if it wasn't known. There's a lot of angry people right now and a lot of ticked off people in the Bernie Sanders camp in regards to this appointment. Specifically, the heavy-handed and the backhanded, according to James Zogby, way, Tom Perez didn't even bring his choice or the notion to nominate him for finance chair and run it by the Bernie Sanders people, even out of courtesy. I mean, he's the chairman, so it's his decision, but don't you think if you're trying to genuinely mend fences, if you're trying to genuinely be neutral in the primary process, don't you think you would want to mention that Debbie Wasserman Schultz mega donor and Hillary Clinton mega donor and somebody who gave Kamala Harris money and Joe Biden money? Don't you think you might want to let Bernie Sanders' campaign know you're thinking of putting him in place and the reason? And maybe this gentleman should have reached out to the Bernie Sanders campaign and say, hey, I said what I said in the past. That was my own political beliefs, but, I'm not here to elect a candidate. I'm here to make sure a Democrat wins. Don't you think that would have been the smart move for him to approach the Sanders campaign? As far as we know, that did not occur.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.